All right, we're live on the podcast. I'm here with the one and only Steve Chandler, also known as the Godfather of coaching. Steve, it's such a pleasure and honor to have you here. Um, you've been a mentor for me, a coach. I've been part of your school for the last 2 years, and it's had such a huge impact on my professional growth, but also really on all areas of my life. You know, you, the work that you do has created such a huge impact on myself and on the coaches that I work with. So yeah, first of all, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, Siawash, and I admire the work you do in the world with coaches and all your other clients who are not coaches. You do great work, so I'm very happy to be with you any chance I get.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's dive in. So cool. This is a very interesting time in which we're speaking because you're now going towards the end of your career, right? And some coaches will be listening to this. Maybe they just started out. Some coaches that will be listening to this have already built their practice maybe to six figures, right? And they're growing. So it's such a great moment to actually be able to to learn from you and get some of that wisdom that you've acquired over the years, right? Because there's so much we can learn from books, right? And you've written a lot of amazing books that can really help coaches, become better as a coach, but also grow their business. But there's you know it's not comparable to actual experience, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's a good supplement to being coached is to read great books if they're great. I'm not saying mine are, but I know you like them.
Mm.
Uh, it's a great that's a great supplement. Books and events that you attend or seminars you go on, but there is nothing that compares to actually being personally coached as far as your own growth, transformation, like you say, as a person, but also in the world of business. And if you're being coached by another coach on how to grow your coaching practice, that is the fastest way I know to have someone grow their practice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things that I really got from you know reading your books, but also just really being part of your school is the power of ongoing coaching, right? And I think that's we that can be repeated enough times. You talk a lot about your work with your coach in different books, right? And I always wondered, like, well, you're a coach, you probably want people to hire you. Why are you talking so much about your work with your coach?
Right. Because I think it helps people know that coaching is about going from good to great. Coaching is
Mm,
about creating a better future for yourself. It isn't about correcting a broken person or uh, extreme psychotherapy for someone who has real deep psychological troubles. Coaching is about growing your practice and growing as a person. So I have never gotten to the point where coaching didn't help me, where already know it all. There's always another level. It's infinite. The amount we can grow professionally, we can become more effective, we can become more prosperous professionally through coaching. So I like to talk about my coach and his impact on me. It
mhm.
also helps a potential client to hear a story from a person whose life has been changed through coaching. So, for example, if you go to a doctor or a nutritionist who says, I take these supplements or I use this medication or whatever, I use it myself, it has really helped me, that's a better testimonial That's the best testimonial you can get for how impactful coaching is when the coach himself or herself talks about their own coach and how their own coach has helped them. A lot of times, newer coaches believe, oh, I don't want to do that. Maybe they'll go hire my coach, or I don't want to do that because maybe I'll look deficient if they think I need a coach. And it's a great time to explain how coaching is really about creating your future. It's not about the past, and it's about going from good to great in life. It's not about going from awful to okay. And so it's good to talk about your own coach, how you've been coached. It really helps.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so in a way, we are all our first client, right? And probably the most important client.
Yes. Yeah, that's a
Mm.
great insight. Yeah, we are the primary client in this world of coaching. And it's good to be able to talk about it. My own coach, Steve Hardison, he really is responsible for my whole life, my whole career. He has guided me every step of the way. And every
Mhm.
session I have with him, I come out with new possibilities and new insights and a new way of seeing the world and a new opportunities for me. So
Yeah.
it's a great thing.
All right. Thank you. Now, one of the questions as I was thinking about this conversation that I really want to ask, and that I want to ask every successful coach that comes to this, to this podcast is, what's one advice you would give to someone in their first year, right? You've probably come across a lot of coaches, and different things, are important in different parts of our journey, right? You talk about the evolution of a coach, right? So if someone is in that first year, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
Well, my advice would be any way you can do it, have ongoing coaching occur with you. Now, some people can't afford a lot in their first year, so they can't go hire one of the really accomplished coaches, but they can get coaching. And in our school, we do peer coaching so that coaches get ongoing coaching. They don't have to pay for it, they coach with other coaches. So even if you have to get a peer coach, another coach who you find online or who you know, or who has gone to a seminar with you, uh, and you can work where you trade off. I'll coach you this week, you coach me next week. Even that, get that first. And then, so that's part of have an ongoing experience of being coached, however you get it. That would be the number one thing that I would tell people. Don't leave that out. Don't wait until someday after I make a certain amount of money, 2 years from now, maybe I'll get a coach. Because if you get a coach right away, you'll make that money sooner. And so you want that. The second thing I would say is to have a learning mindset at all times. So find out the people who are writing the great books in the world of coaching. Find that out. Go find out from another coach what books have influenced you in the most positive ways for coaching. And then you want to get those books and read them carefully more than once if they really impact you. And then if that author of those books is also has videos or has a website or a blog, you want to watch those videos. Watch when that author gets interviewed, or that author has his own videos out there somewhere on his website. You want to watch those regularly because that's another form of learning. And if you like Siawash, I can send you the 10 books that have influenced me the most as a coach, and you can share that with your followers just so that if they are now thinking, well, I don't know where to find those books, or I don't
Yeah.
know, I'm happy to send that list to you,
Mhm.
and you can share that with your followers. And I know you have a lot of followers.
Yeah, I would love that. And we can maybe put that somewhere in the description.
Yeah,
Yeah. So just to recap there, so hiring a coach, and if one cannot hire a coach and maybe it's part of a program already, maybe coach peer coaching with other colleagues, right? And then
yes,
secondly, having that learning mindset.
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. And I know you mentioned the top 10 books. If you could just think about what is one book that you've always recommended to coaches that you say, hey, you know what, this is something that, if you're open for that, that would really be impactful in your coaching business.
Well, the first book that comes to mind is by George and Linda Pransky, and it's
Hmm.
called The Relationship Handbook. Now that book is powerful because it talks about relationships, meaning your life partner, but it applies to all relationships. And coaching is a relationship business. It's not a marketing or sales business or an advertising business. It's a relationship business. And people grow their practices through creating relationships. They don't do it through marketing. Sometimes good blogs or good online communication can start a relationship, so you don't want to leave that out if you like that. But I would say George and Linda Pransky's book, and I'm just coming off the top of my head here. That would be the first book I might give a coach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a book that my coach recommended last year and very impactful. And I love that. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because when I actually first time I joined ACS, I was really looking at my business as a sales business, right? And I looked at my diary, and there's like 5 calls, and there was a lot of feelings that come with that. And you mentioned, relationship business, and that's really made a big impact for me. Can you go a little bit deeper on that?
Yes, especially if your coaching is along the lines of whole life coaching, where I'm
Mm-hmm.
coaching life coaching. I'm coaching a person in not only how they succeed in the world, but also who they are as a person. Their capacity for being happy, feeling joy, and having good relationships in their private life with their family and friends, as well as their business success. Um, if that's a component of your coaching, which in all good coaching, even if you're known as a business coach, you're still, if you're good, you're still going to be coaching the person who's approaching making their business better. You're coaching the internal world of that coach as well. And so it's important, therefore, to have a factor of trust and to build a relationship and create some connection and rapport with your potential client. And so that relationship is even more important. The connection your potential client feels with you, like they feel understood, they feel as if you are have a lot of non-judgmental compassion for where they are in the world, what their progress is. That requires knowing how to create a good relationship right from the outset. You can't just go in looking impressive, and that component has to be there, and that trust has to be formed. And someone has to feel, I want to talk to this person again because they really understand where I'm coming from. They're a good listener and they can relate to me. And they do relate to me. And that's a really important component of enrolling a new client. And so that's why learning to create those relationships through conversation, even if you don't consider yourself a real outgoing, extroverted people person, and most coaches aren't. Even if you're a little shy and reserved, you're more introverted as a person, you can still learn to create a really great relationship because great relationships are not created by how impressive you are and how flamboyant and outgoing and confident your personality is. They're created through listening and connection. And you can be extremely introverted and learn how to be have great conversations with people because the questions you ask, the curiosity you show, and your capacity for deep listening is the most important part.
Oh, Steve, I think rather than recapping that, it sounds to me, right, that these things that you mentioned, right, deep listening, compassion, non-judgmental, right, building that trust and connection, you're building that business really by becoming a better coach, right? Because these are really the qualities of coach that's done a lot of the work on them, you know, and really worked on their craft, right? So rather than, really focusing on the sales, while sales is an important part of business, right? What I'm hearing is really the coaching part is what's the most important.
That's right. Yeah. How good you are as a coach, and we can all get better. Nobody's
Mm,
perfect. But as you get better as a coach, you'll be better in your first conversations, like you point out, because it translates across. In your first conversations, the skills you learn as a coach, um, they show up in that first conversation or two with a prospective client, and they're the same skills, like you say, uh, in enrolling someone as you use when you're coaching them moving forward.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Most people that know you know that one of the books you've written is a book that you wrote with Rich, right? The Prosperous Coach. Now, personally, I don't want to go too much into that. If someone hasn't read that, you know, do go get a copy of that. That book for me personally, changed everything. It changed how I was looking at my business. But one of the questions that I was thinking about, rather than talking about the book here, what is one common myth about the book, about the Prosperous Coach methodology that you want to debunk? If you really think about, a lot of people take that book and it's almost like this is like a yeah I don't want think of I don't want to use the wrong analogy, but it's almost like, well, let's follow this is the rules, this is the only way to do it, and that's how we're gonna do this business.
Right. So I think the main myth in the coaching world that book was counter to, that came out and said,
Mhm.
uh, you don't want to follow that direction. You want to experiment with this direction because our experience from Rich and myself over the years showed that marketing and getting um, the amount of people in your funnel, your sales funnel, and all of that, that works for really low cost items. Like, let's say you're doing a low cost seminar on something, or you've got a low cost little ebook you're selling, or anything like that. Marketing works for that. But for coaching itself, you want to go in the opposite direction, because marketing doesn't work very well for coaching itself. Promoting marketing, that's a waste of time. You're better off having one really good conversation with a single person you know who might be a candidate for coaching. You're better off spending 2 hours, 3 hours with that person in your day than you are being online and putting your name out there and trying to get yourself better known. Um, it doesn't matter how well known you are when you're talking to an individual, they don't care. In fact, that can work against you because they're assuming you're going to be way too expensive or whatever. Um, the myth that's debunked, I think, successfully by people's experience, is that you need to have lots and lots of people know about you. You need to establish yourself in the world as well known and have that out there. And you need to put that out there first. And then later, and then if you do that, people will come to you. What really happens is you coach that one person well, and that person will tell their friends, their business colleagues, their family members about your coaching. So, coaching is a very personal connection related business. It is not about self promotion, personal branding, all the things that people sell to coaches and tell coaches, I can improve your website, and if you have a better website, you'll get more clients. And so early coaches fall victim to those approaches, and so they get people consulting with them or selling them programs on how to market yourself better, and they don't end up getting clients that way. In the end, you want to reverse that process and have word of mouth be primary to how good you are. And then anything that you're doing that has to do with your public profile in the world is secondary, and it doesn't lead to the clients you want. So you can do it, and you can have it be out there. And some coaches are good at going on social media and um, creating an early relationship through social media. But in the end, it's the relationship that counts. And that's, I think, what that book focused on, is the individual person you're going to have a conversation with. That's primary to building your practice, and second, worse than secondary, almost irrelevant in a way, is your all the time you're spending on your public image.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. I think that part, that alone, I think is such a so profound, because I remember when I hired my first coach, it's like, okay, build your YouTube channel, build your email list, do a Facebook Live every day, and I was pretty much about to quit. And and then when I read the book, it's like a burden fell off my shoulder. And I've heard that so many times from coaches that, oh, you know what, this book actually saved my career, right? Well,
Yeah,
so yeah, so it's really all about that personal connection, the word of mouth, just getting into conversation with people. And I agree with you. There is maybe a place for using social media and doing marketing. And something that really helped me is when you said, you know, do it as a means, instead of doing it as a means to an end, just making it end in itself, right? So we can create a video or a blog, but we can just make it a really come from a place of service rather than as a, like, well, let's hope that they buy it and sign up with me somehow.
That's right. That's it exactly. So I used to write a lot of blogs,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hope that people would read the blog and think, oh well, this guy's impressive, and I loved his blog, so I'm going to track him down and see if he'll coach me. That never happened. They just liked the blog. That was it. And what I found was once I wrote the blog, if I then took that blog and figured out what individual would benefit from reading this that I'm already in communication with, and then I would send that blog and say, uh, hi, I don't know if you saw this blog. I thought I'd send it to you because it relates to a conversation you and I had about growing your business or work life balance or time management or whatever. And by sending it personally and personalizing it to an individual, I would get a lot more response because they would come back to me and say, wow, that really did make an impact. I would like to talk to you further about this. So, again, even if you do public things, um, the best use of those is to then find an individual that you're already in contact with, communication with, and send it to them because in the end, that's where your clients are going to come from. They're going to come from conversations you have that build trust in another person and give the other person the experience of talking to you.
Yeah.
That's where clients come from. They come from another person's experience of talking to you. They don't come from some post you made or some video you put out there. So always keep that in mind.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And in a way, if you look at the, you've written, I've lost personal count. Is it 20, 30 books right now? Right. And I love it. And in a way, this is how we can use books, even if we don't have our own books, right? When we are speaking to someone and we think about a specific book that could help them, we could give that to them. Can you speak a little bit about that? I know you've done that. I know your coach used to do that. Maybe still does that with your books, right?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to be by you. So a lot of times coaches think, well, I'll write a book, and once my book is out there, I'll get clients. And um, my coach has never been interested in writing a book. He said, that's not what I do. Why would I do that if coaching is what I do best? Um, and a lot of coaches think I have to write a book or I have to do this, and then I'll become better known. But you can give a book. My first co-author that wrote books with, he used to give out a book called The E-Myth, which was a book about small businesses and how to grow them. And so he would buy 20 or 30 and he would give that book to potential clients and say, if this book has an impact on you and it helps you as much as it helped my business, get in touch with me and I can work with you on how to apply this and other things to your world. So, and my coach, he gives out Byron Katie books. He gives out my book. He gives out Jonathan Kaiser's book to people. And he says, read this book. My business card is in the back. And if it has an impact on you and you want to talk further about getting coached, let me know. And nobody ever cares that, well, you didn't write this book, so why should I coach with you? They think, wow, this did impact me. Thank you for this book. I would like to talk to you. So it doesn't have to be your own book. And giving people a book really helps them. It really moves them forward. And if they're interested in growing, the book will move them forward. they'll be even more ready to coach with you than if you didn't give them a book or a audio to listen to or send them a TED talk that really applies to their world. So you don't have to wait until it's your book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for writing those books. It's been, very impactful for me personally, but also in actually using it like that, using it to help others. Um, so um, yeah, in your career, you've built your business. I know you worked in corporate, so you work with you worked as a success coach. You've worked with people from all different backgrounds, right? And then also you set up a school to help coaches grow their business. So in that journey, of course, there's different milestones. If we look at it in terms of business, what is one shift that you feel like coaches need to make to grow, from 6 to 7 figures?
Oh, 6 to 7. That's a lot of money to be made as a coach. There aren't many making 7 figures,
Mm-hmm.
but a milestone I think for that kind of jump uh, would be it would have to be a milestone in the effectiveness of your work. So I kept learning about when I trained sales teams, for example, in corporate, the more I learned about sales from my coach, from other areas, the better I got at coaching people in it. And the milestone was when the courses became so effective that those companies wanted follow up courses from me. And other companies found out that this company here had a jump in sales from this training and coaching, and that made them interested in talking to me and getting a little demonstration of what I teach. And so that's the biggest milestone is not in how you promote or sell what you do. That's important, but it's in how effective your work is. What's the impact of your work? And how do I improve that? How do I have my clients get faster results, better results from the coaching? That's really, for me, that was a milestone because there was a point at which I was receiving really profound coaching from my coach, who is a master salesperson. He had been in sales and was great at it. And so I learned so much from him and applied it for other things I was selling other than coaching. And so I began to learn techniques, strategies, principles around selling. And the better I got at training and teaching those things, the faster the income went up. The more you can charge for your work, the more impact it has. So that was the biggest milestone for me was to really focus not so much on getting another client after I coached this group or this person, but having the coaching of this group and this person be so good and so impactful that the story about the outcome they got would be something I could tell or they could tell. And that really had the biggest impact on the fees I was able to charge and the fees that clients were willing to pay.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow. So really looking at the effectiveness in the work that you do as a coach, really, so the impact that we create in that work, and then being able to do that so well that you have a great story that you can share, but those people will share with others. So again, it comes back to that principle of building relationships, word of mouth. People will talk about your work, right? And this leads to something else that I, from my observation, I look at a lot of coaches here in the UK, and I don't see that much here. Let me explain. So when I came to ACS, right, and I was listening to yourself, you have a lot of clients that work long term with you, right? You've worked, I think over 10 years with your own coach, right? And I saw that there was a team there, and there's something you mentioned in one of your books, right? Coach someone as if they're your only client ever. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but that really made a big shift for me because I was always looking for the next client. And since then, I've had a lot of clients that have renewed again and again, and some of them are in the second, some of them in the third year. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. As your coaching effectiveness gets better and the impact is makes a bigger difference with your clients, they will want to renew with you more. And they will ask you at the end of your 6 month coaching program, or 1 year, or 3 month, they will say, can I continue with you? And I noticed over the years that as my coaching got better, I didn't have to go look for new people because the people I had were renewing with me to go on another year. I have clients now that have been with me for 5 years, or a couple of them for 10 years, or 2 or 3 years. They might have started with just 90 days. Let's go for 90 days, but it was the return on their investment in coaching was so good that they didn't want to stop. So if your clients are renewing, um, they're also going to be referring you to other people in their world. And pretty soon, your practice it grows from renewal and referral. And you don't have to worry so much about going out finding some new person to explain coaching to and to connect with, because you've got a family of clients and they have people, and it grows through that. But a lot of coaches think that's kind of pie in the sky. That would be so wonderful, but that's many years away, and we don't really believe in that. We have to go out and grind and search for new people all the time. But if you look at any good profession, a good lawyer who has a track record of winning cases for his clients, that person doesn't have to go look for new clients all the time. He has people in his waiting room wanting him to be their lawyer. And he has, if he's a corporate lawyer, he has corporations who work with him or her for years and years. So any good profession, once they go through the first stages of getting their client list, they don't have to devote that much time to that, because of all the renewals and all the and a lot of coaches. You talk about UK coaches, or it happens here in America as well. They've only learned a little bit about coaching, or they know how to do a basic thing, and their client learns that, and that's the end of the game. The client goes away and says, "Thanks, I learned a lot from you." And now they have to go find new clients. But when you're getting better as a coach, the client feels it. And the client knows that I was a year with this coach. The next year is going to be even better, because the last few months were really taking me to the next level. We're really seeing things I didn't see. So I can imagine the next year would be even better.
Yeah.
Which, if you're growing as a coach, your second year with a client is going to be better than the first year. And the client knows it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so impactful. And by the way, just a side note, that I think there are a lot of great coaches in the UK, and That was my observation at that time. But I see this more and more that great coaches, their clients keep renewing and referring to them. And
Yes,
what came up for me is Amazon, right? For me, like one of the reasons I always love buying stuff from Amazon is because anytime I buy anytime I buy something, if it's not good, I'll get an instant refund, or they'll send a new product. So customer service is at their highest priority, right? And that's something
yeah,
that I've really looked into bringing into my business, and I think it's such a game changer when we really
yes,
just kind of slow down instead of thinking always about the next person. Look at the people in front of us.
that's right. It's how well you're serving
Mm.
existing clients. So coaches who worked with me over time, when they would come to a session, they wouldn't just bring a list of new clients they want to get and how to enroll them. They would do that, but they would bring in existing clients that they're working with that are, and maybe the client is kind of stuck or at a plateau, or they don't know how to help them any further. And we would look at that because they realized that their impact, their service to existing clients was even more important to their prosperity over time than their ability to go out and get new clients.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the customer service, the client service element is often neglected by coaches. And they think, okay, I already got this client. They've paid me. I'm good with that. Now I need to go
Mm.
get new people. And they don't realize that, okay, how good is the service to this existing client? How can I have it be better?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. This has been super valuable. One question that, as another question that really I think will be useful, because a lot of people might listen to this and will think like, you know what, well, this sounds good for one day, you know, this seems like, I'm out of my zone. You know, I know that I was there as a struggling coach, and I know you've been there. What is, one thing that you would say to a struggling coach, someone that's listening, maybe they're doing this part-time, or maybe they're doing this full-time, but they're currently struggling to build their business.
I think I'll go back to what we said at the beginning. If I'm struggling and there's some area of coaching I'm struggling in, even if at the beginning it's how do I find people to talk to? Um, how do I progress with a conversation I'm having from conversation to that person hiring me? Because maybe a new coach is having a lot of conversations, but they don't result in clients. I would always say, find someone who's doing that well and learn from them. Have them help you do that well. There's always the how to is not missing. It is the connecting with someone who can teach you, and maybe they can only teach you for now through a book on how to get clients or how to be a prosperous coach. But whatever it is, go get help for that. Don't just sit there and wonder, why am I not good at this? Have someone you can ask. Hey, I'm not so good at this yet. How would you help me get better at it? And there are people in the world who will help you, and they'll share their systems with you. They'll share what they do, and you can get better at any aspect of coaching. But don't just sit there with it like it's a personal defect. Go get the help you need. All it is a line of development that has not grown. So your skill at meeting people, at enrolling people is low. But So I want to recognize that's not a personality flaw, that's a skill. And everything in becoming a prosperous coach is a developmental line that takes first input. I want to learn how to do this by people who know. And then I want to practice that. And my skill will always get better. And know that it's out there. You can learn it and you have to practice it. And it's only a skill that's underdeveloped. It is not, most coaches, most people, they personalize everything and they say, I'm not good at, or I've never been good at meeting people or whatever. That's simply a skill you haven't developed. That's all it is. So if someone walks into my room with a cello and says, "Hey, Steve, play something for me. I understand you like music and you play instruments, and I don't know how to play the cello." I don't personalize it and say, I don't have the right kind of character as a human. I don't have the right personality to play your cello. I'd simply say, no, I don't play the cello. I haven't learned it. Or someone says, can you translate that phrase into French? Well, I don't speak French. But not because there's anything wrong with me. I just haven't chosen to learn it. We want to take that awareness about things like a musical instrument or a language and apply it to our business, because that's all that's ever missing is a lack of practice in some area. It's never personal. And when coaches get over that, it's exciting because they say, I want to learn this. I want to learn, I'm not a good listener. I want to learn it. And so they get Mark Howard, Dr. Mark Howard has a listening program, and he's a 3P coach, and it's brilliant. I learned a lot from it. I went and did his program because I thought I'm not as good a listener as I would like to be. I talk too much. And so it's all out there for you. And never personalize it. Always see it as something that is has not yet been learned and practiced.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Steve. Yeah, I think that's really useful. So that distinction is seeing it as a skill rather than a personality defect, right?
Yes.
And if we see it as a skill, we don't need to be, born with a special DNA or, have be talented, right? So some people think about, well, I'm not made to be an entrepreneur or a successful coach, right? There's nothing to do with that, right? It's about putting the practice in, right? I love what you said there, and I know you've sometimes given the example of learning a language, right? You just have to practice it, and sometimes you have to. Some people take a bit longer, in practicing it, going back and reviewing it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
And that's a real breakthrough for people when they see that clearly.
Yeah. And I think it's in your book Creator that you talk a little bit more about that, right? That conditioning is happening all the time, right? That we can actually really slow down and create what we want to create.
That's right. Most people and clients you have, clients I have, they have bought in to the myth or the old world psychological viewpoint that we are conditioned in childhood
Yeah.
to be who we are now. And that was our conditioning, and it's over, and it made me into an introvert, an extrovert, someone not good at language, someone not good at sales, and it's locked in. It's hardwired. But what they've found recently in neuroscience about neuroplasticity in the brain is something that Buddhist teachers and meditators have known forever. and talk about, and that is you can condition yourself as you go. And conditioning of the brain and the mind doesn't end in childhood, it only begins there. But we are conditioned every day. You and I are conditioned. If you and I leave this call and we learn something from reading the George Linda Pransky book on relationships and we start to have better relationships, that's called present day conditioning that we're choosing for ourselves. We're not victims of bad parenting or something like that. Those days are gone. And they might have left me with a defect in self-esteem, but that can be altered. That can be corrected by us. We become parents to ourselves. And it happens faster when we wake up to the fact that we have infinite creativity um, in us. And it can be applied not just to some little painting we make or a poem we write or a birdhouse we construct. It can be applied to who we are being in the world. And that's a huge breakthrough for people. When my clients learn that and then experience it, it is the biggest wow factor that you can create who you're being. You're not stuck with it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much add to that. That's really profound. And for me, like what I've noticed that is that sometimes I read something and it doesn't necessarily land. I'll just keep repeating it. I know that one thing that when I joined ACS, right, your school for coaches, you had the weekly audios, you had the books, and I would just put it on again and then again, and then slowly it would actually land and I would get it, right? And that's, I guess, sometimes all we have to do is just repeat something enough times for us to really get it, and the conditioning is happening in the moment. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Same with any field like three principles or Byron Katie or any field of study on how people change. When I first encountered three principles, I didn't understand a word of it. I couldn't figure it out. But I kept repeating it. Somebody would say, I would listen to a Sid Banks talk, and I would say, "Man, it just went right past me. I don't even know what he was saying. I couldn't tell you anything about it." And they would say, "Listen again," and okay, so I'd go listen again, and second time I'd start to see something. Same with Byron Katie's work or any field that you like that calls to you for personal growth, spiritual growth. You read it another time, and it really impacts you.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
We
Yeah,
had a saying. We had a saying that you know about in our school called "once for information, twice for transformation." So I read a book on whatever business, the E Myth, or some business book, and I get the information when I read it the first time. But if I'm willing to read it again more slowly, a second time, then things start changing inside of me.
thank you. Yeah, very useful. We've come to the end of the hour. I think there's really so much gold, so much wisdom in here. This is I'm gonna make this actually, not just recommended. This is gonna be part of the curriculum for the coaches I work with. This is really good. I'm gonna put a link up to your website because there's so many books that honestly, like, and I don't say this because it's you here, but if coaches could even just read only your books, I think it would transform their business and their life and help them really grow in ways that they can imagine. So I'm gonna put a link there to your website. Is there anything that you want to close with?
No, I just want to thank you for the great work you do. It has not only a great impact on coaches who learn from you, but on all of their clients forevermore. So the impact you have in the world is greater than you see, you realize. And you have an absolutely clear and deep understanding of what we taught in our school. So I love the fact that you're out there teaching your version of what you learn, and then obviously you learn from other resources as well. But I'm really happy to recommend you because you really understand it, and you also understand how to coach it and teach it to others. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. All right, thank you for being with us, and yeah, have a great day.
You too.